What's up guys, I'm Grandmaster Igor Smirnov and today I'll show you the 4 main mistakes that are holding you back from reaching the 2000 ELO in chess. This first example already makes it clear why a lot of people get stuck in chess and cannot progress further. Let me ask you to think about this position. Let's say you're playing it as black and it is now your move. Which move would you play here? 67% of players play the move pawn takes e6, blundering this check, which leads to a quick and beautiful, unfortunately beautiful checkmate. Which brings us to the first idea. I call it a CCTV rule. Always scan the board for checks, captures, and threats, making sure no intruder comes into your home without you noticing. Because I understand you can't spend a lot of time at every move thinking about every potential counter move of your opponent, right? It's got to be simple and actionable, and that is why we're talking about this thing. Focus your attention on your side of the board. It's kind of like your home, and look for checks, captures, threats that your opponent can play on your side of the board. Usually there aren't many at all. In this position, maybe he can deliver this check or that check, like bishop to h7, but it's clear that this check doesn't do much, or bishop takes h7 doesn't mean anything because you can recapture. So really queen h5 check would be the only move for you to consider. Let me show you something interesting. Here in this database, you can see that the vast majority of players actually captured on e6, making that blunder. But okay, how about the second group who played the correct move knight to f6? Let's follow through. What happens next? White captures on f7, black recaptures with a king, white goes knight to f3, and guess what most players play at this point? It's that move bishop g4, played by almost half of the players at this position. And I hope that by now it's clear to you why this move is incorrect. Because it fails to follow that CCTV rule, right? You gotta look for checks, captures, threats on your side of the board, and indeed the move knight to e5 is a check to your king, but also hunts this bishop on g4, and white is winning a piece and is getting a totally winning position. You can easily see how this one idea can put you ahead of the crowd. Moving on to the second example, it is black to play, and you may once again challenge yourself to think about this for a few seconds and decide which move would you play here. White has just moved his kingside pawns forward. Clearly he plans to push forward and destroy your castling, begin attacking your king. A lot of players in such positions, probably the majority, would try to stop this by going something like knight h7, trying to get control of this square, trying to slow down white's attack. It seemed to make sense at first, but let's think about this in general first. Like, what do you want to do in chess? In chess, you want to keep your pieces active and then use them to attack your opponent. Like, in a nutshell, that's the plan. Therefore, while retreating here, you don't attack your opponent, you don't even try, and you make your position worse by putting your piece to a worse, less active square. That is the problem with this move. And guess what? White will continue attacking. It's not gonna really stop it. White can even sacrifice a pawn, and even though black is not getting checkmated right away, but clearly white is way ahead in his attack. Which brings us to the second rule, which puts you ahead of the crowd. Never defend by reflex, only when necessary. What I mean by that is you can play it out in your head and try to identify what is a real threat. Alright, so let's say like play some move, rook c8 or b5, something that you want to play. And let's play it out. Let's say he goes g5. What's going to happen next? And clearly taking there is going to be a really bad idea for black because now this h file is open and black's going to be in trouble. But you don't have to take, right? You can retreat the knight. Now you've got this square for your knight, which is pretty good, an advanced square. And now if he captures, at first it looks like black is in trouble, like his king is about to be exposed, but you can push the pawn forward and keep the position locked. And now actually the king side is deadlocked, right? Like white is not going anywhere. There's nothing he can do. And in the long run, your knight will jump somewhere forward when necessary. But for now, your position is totally fine and you can keep expanding on the queen side somehow. The next game was played by Tal, and now we can learn a lesson from the magician. It is white to move. As always, if you will, you may try to find the right move yourself. And it's not even the right move, it's more of how to approach this position. Now, let's first try out the common way of thinking. What would most players play? There is no obvious move to play, like no obvious attacking move or something like that. Probably you can see that these pieces aren't very active standing on the first rank, and you may wish to develop them, activate them somehow. So maybe I will play queen move somewhere here, And then let's say your opponent goes bishop c6. Now you start thinking, okay, there is an open file, and there's this nice square. Maybe I want to go inside and potentially double rooks to take the open file. And then he goes rook g8 and hits your pawn on g2. I think, okay, no problem, I can defend it. And you do defend the pawn. But then, you know, the grass is always wider on the other side. He comes to your territory hitting the queen. I think, okay, the queen needs to move somewhere, and you do move it somewhere. Anywhere, it doesn't really matter. And then suddenly your opponent captures this pawn on h3. And you don't understand what's going on. You're trying to capture the rook, but the pawn is rebelling, not following orders. What is going on? It's because of this sniper bishop that pins the pawn. Therefore, your king has to move, which is annoying. And now you already lost one of the pawns of your casting. He's probably going to come here, keep attacking, and white is going to quickly go down. And in such situations, people usually think, oh, I blunder that rook takes h3 tactic, right? Maybe I need to solve more tactical puzzles. But that's not really the answer, because frankly, the situation was annoying already. Black was putting pressure here, right? I mean, he could even capture that pawn on the queen side if he wanted to. And overall, white actually messed up earlier. There is a reason the word talented was named after him. Let's see what Tal did in this position. He followed the next rule: uncover your opponent's plan. If you ask yourself that question, what is my opponent's plan here, you'll quickly realize that actually it's pretty obvious that black is going to do this, because yes, indeed, there is this open file that targets your king. Black will probably try to use that. And that bishop c6 move idea that adds pressure to this pawn is another obvious move for black to play. And frankly, there is not much he can do otherwise. Therefore, if you just ask yourself that question, you'd notice that black is going to double up against this pawn on g2. And for that reason, Tal played bishop e2, ready to put his bishop right here and to oppose the black bishop from c6, which he did. It's interesting that we know Tal as the master of combinations, but I'm impressed that in this position, he actually demonstrated really great positional understanding. He neutralized your opponent's threat, and now black is kind of hopeless. His king is centralized, he can't castle queenside because of our rook. Casting kingside also doesn't seem to be very appealing because the king is wide open there, and therefore black is kind of stuck. There's not much he can do at all. He tried to trade rooks, but after a couple more moves, again, black is kind of stuck. He's got nothing to do, and Tal gradually begins attacking. He attacks the queen, attacks this pawn, and now he finally targets this pawn, and within a couple moves, black collapsed and resigned. Now we're gradually moving towards the fourth rule. In this position, it is white to move, and again, if you will, you may try thinking about this position and finding the right move for white here. Black has just moved his knight to c6, and his idea probably is to hit this pawn on d4. Now, what would you play here? Most players would notice that and would defend the pawn. However, understanding your opponent's plan is certainly good, although it does not mean that you're going to defend. Because of the fourth rule, offense is the best defense. Instead of being passive and just defending this pawn with the knight to f3, you could just push the pawn forward and instead challenge this knight and push it away. That way you expand, you grab even more space, and you never wasted any time defending. Now let me show you something inspirational, I think, because it shows you how reluctant people are to follow the rule, or probably they're not even aware of the idea. So here you can see that the vast majority of players, 58%, played the move knight to f3 just defending this pawn. Very few played pawn to d5. Alright, let's continue. Black goes bishop g4, pinning the knight. What do people play here? Again, same stuff. They either play bishop e2, neutralizing the pin, playing a defensive move, or bishop e3, the second most played move, trying to guard that pawn on d4. And again, very few, 16% only, play the more aggressive and the best move, pawn to d5, following that rule: offense is the best defense. Alright, let's keep going. Knight to e5. 73%, the vast majority, once again chose the most passive defensive move, bishop e2. Even though the knight on f3 is not even hanging, right? It's already defended by the pawn. There's no real threat there. Well, I could have easily played bishop f4 or whatever, just bishop b5, some attacking aggressive move forward, challenging black, but instead 73% goes bishop e2, making no problems for black whatsoever. While white has a lot of aggressive options in this position, the most brutal way to follow the rule offense is the best defense is to ignore this pin altogether and to sacrifice your queen. In this variation, suddenly black is running out of options to cover his own king. c6 is a move, but then once you capture, there's not much black can do to stop you from the discover check on the next move. You will either push the pawn forward, attacking the queen, or capture on b7, but either way, his king cannot be defended, and you're going to win a ton of material, ending up with material advantage. There are different ways for black to lose here. I love the most that in this game, black played queen to c7, trying to mechanically stop this pawn from moving forward, but there is also this second option, and now once the king moves, since your opponent already had too much in this game, you can be kind enough not to even take the rook, but just to take this pawn. And I hope that this video also inspires you to see that with just a couple simple tweaks, it is possible to bypass the majority of chess players and also make fewer mistakes. And if you enjoy these ideas and really want to get yourself to level of 2000 or maybe even beyond that, I've put together a special course bundle that gives you that clear blueprint. You can access it by clicking the link below the video, and I'll be happy to help. Either way, let me know if you have any questions. And of course, always remember that the most impressive sacrifice is to sacrifice your opponent's rating.